Dr. Williams, thanks so much for taking the time to meet with me today. I appreciate it. You have a column out today on Rachel Dolezal. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I just kind of poking fun at the fact that she's not by herself in terms of racial fakery. There's number one, Senator Elizabeth Warren. She said that her ancestry had to do with the Cherokees, and actually it turned out that her father, her grandfather was not a Cherokee, and he boasted of shooting Cherokees.
Wow. And
then I confessed because during my time in the Army in 1960, when I was landing in Korea, I told the people that I was Caucasian.
How well did that go over?
well, we went back and forth, and the guy said, it was a chief, a warrant officer. He says, well, why do you want to put down Caucasian? I said, well, look, if I put down Negro, I'll get the worst job over here.
What does this conversation, and the fact that we're having it, in 2015, what does it say about where our country is when it comes to issues of race?
Well, I think it's a sad commentary on our country. Racial discrimination and racism could have died a well-deserved death, but it's been resurrected by poverty pimps and other people who benefit from exploiting the problems that black people face in our country.
Now let's talk about the economics of it all. You have been very strong in your support of free markets. Tell me about what that means for the African American community and what it means for Americans overall, the system that, under President Obama we're currently living in.
Well, I think that that so far as black Americans have been concerned, is that their major problem has been with government. It was the failure of government that accounted for slavery in the first place. After emancipation was again the failure of government to protect the rights of the emancipated people. And then today it's a failure of government why black Americans are huddled in their homes at night afraid to go out on the street, and roughly 7,000 blacks are murdered each year by blacks. Again, it's a failure of government that accounts for the rotten education, grossly fraudulent education that most black kids receive. And so government has been the enemy, and government in general is the enemy of the people, and the founders of our nation recognize this very well. That is, if you just look at the Constitution of the United States, it shows a deep distrust that the founders and the framers of the Constitution had for the United States Congress. You find terminology like in the Bill of Rights like Congress shall not infringe, Congress shall not disparage, Congress shall not prohibit. Well, the founders didn't think that Congress would do that. Why would it be in there in the first place? And as I've suggested to many people, that when we die, and if at our next destination we see anything like a Bill of Rights, we know that we're in hell, because a Bill of Rights in heaven would be an affront to God. It would be saying that, well, we can't trust God. But if you look at the free market, the free market has been pro the common man. It has supported the common man throughout history, and it's the wealthy or the upper class who's benefited from government intervention.
So do you think the black community gets it? Because it sounds like you're describing conservative principles, but do African Americans relate to those principles in any way?
Well, I think black Americans have a misguided faith in the leadership of black Americans. And you see this misguided faith is that if you ask people like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, what's your view on the death penalty, they would be against it, but most black people are for the death penalty. If you look at abortion, most black people are against abortion, but the so-called black leaders are for abortion. As a matter of fact, if you just look at a poll of black people, they'd had more in common with Reverend Falwell than Jesse Jackson in terms of their particular values.
Has that changed under President Obama?
Well, I think, again, it's a misguided sense of loyalty, because black people who voted, 95% that have voted for President Obama. And if you look at almost any statistic of black welfare, it has been stagnant or worse under President Obama.
And I guess my final question is, are conservatives sensitive to the needs of those who are impoverished in this country? Because so often you hear Democrats or folks on the left say, well, Republicans don't get it. Conservatives don't get it. They're not for the poor people. Is that true?
Well, I don't think so. Look, if you look at schools, just education as one thing, it seems like conservatives are for school choice. They are for parents being able to get their children out of these dangerous, fraudulent schools. But if you look at liberal Democrats, they are guided by the National Education Association, and they are against school choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that conservatives need to make a little bit more of how school choice would benefit blacks. As a matter of fact, just easy, they're like in Philadelphia, I believe right now, there are about 21,000 people on the waiting list for charter schools. But the Republicans or conservatives would support charter schools, whereby the liberals and Democrats will not.
All right. Dr. Williams, thanks so much for taking time with me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.